Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered, the podcast with Ken Campbell. I am Dylan Waugh. I am the sidekick. I am the boo-boo to Yogi Bear. Today we're going to be talking to Jeff Marek from 32 Thoughts, Hockey Night in Canada, and of course the Jeff Marek Show. Who am I to be introducing Jeff Marek? Anyways, we're going to be talking about the Washington Capitals, a few NCAA prospects, and of course the Florida Panthers. Check us out on Twitter at Hockey No Filter. Well, Ken, how are you?
Never better.
Never better.
Never better.
Good. So
not only did I save a bundle by switching to Geico, which is a line I'm going to use every week now, but for the first time since like early December, mid-December, I'm going to be playing hockey tonight.
Great feeling. Best feeling in the world. I take the warm-up reps with no bucket on.
Yeah, exactly.
Wishing through your hair.
Yeah. I feel like I'm 10 years old again. I'm waiting for my game.
Yeah.
So we got shut down. I played not even beer league. It's pickup hockey. It's just pickup hockey with a bunch of bad hockey players, of which I am one of the worst. And so, anyways, so we play on Wednesday nights. We got shut down, sometime in December until well after Christmas. And then I had some health issues. I had a blood clot in my leg that migrated up to my lungs and caused all sorts of problems. And I couldn't really do much for too long. So I had to lay low, but I got the green light from the doctor to play.
Yeah.
Last week, actually. And so the first thing I did, of course, was go out and try and do a long run, which screwed up my Achilles tendon. So I couldn't play last week. True story, bro. Anyways.
In true hockey.
Anyways.
In true hockey fashion.
Yeah.
You came here with just your foot swollen up to the size of a watermelon.
Oh,
powered through.
Yeah, and I borrowed an ice pack from you that I didn't bring back this week.
Right.
Anyways,
You're lucky I'm not injured.
So anyways, that's a long way of saying I'm playing hockey tonight. It's going to be awesome. The guy who organizes our teams and everything, he's texted me this week and he said, I hear you're coming. He said, really happy that you're coming back. The swearing's really falling off. We got to get an injection of swearing back in. So
yeah,
at least I'm good for something. I got I got that going for me, eh?
Of course. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. I mean, like Gordie Howe said, right? All hockey players speak two languages, English and profanity.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now they speak several languages.
Yeah. Several languages. They're getting smarter and smarter.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know about that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess not a lot of 14-year-old high school dropouts, going into the league, right?
Right. No.
Yeah. So
now they just pretend to go to school for a while.
Minnesota, we are looking at you. So before we get cracking into our first little preamble here, we're officially with the Hockey Podcast Network. Yeah. This is our first episode with the Hockey Podcast Network. You will notice that our whole thing looks better and different. It's because another extremely talented and probably good-looking fellow by the name of Dylan designed all of this for us. Not me, Dylan. There are other Dylan nerds out there in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course we are sponsored now by Draftkings. This is all exciting stuff. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can see just down right in that direction, you can see the Ken Campbell Substack is on the list of things to find us. So
Ken Campbell no, what is it again? I don't even remember what it is. Ken.Campbell?
KenCampbell.substack.com. Yeah. It's like me.
KenCampbell.substack.com. Yeah.
I got your Twitter wrong once and you went, no, that was it. But it was wrong. Yeah. So
I can recite entire Bugs Bunny episodes, but I don't even remember my own phone number sometimes. Incredible.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well.
So before we jump into the chat with Jeff Marek, which was it delivers. How would I put it that way?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. Jeff brought
like
his
he hits on everything.
Yeah.
Like the guy just knows everything about everything in hockey.
Yeah.
And
Don't you hate guys like that?
And he's really smart too. Like he's really smart. Like he's well spoken.
Yeah.
And you'll find out like he's zen. He knows his philosophers. He knows his historical figures.
Yeah.
Just a really bright guy.
Yeah. There's a lot more Greek than on your typical hockey podcast.
Yeah. We should have had Nick Kyprios on.
So before we jump into that conversation with Jeff Marek, let's just chat a little bit about the Evgeny Malkin suspension.
Right. Let's chat. I actually was really pleasantly surprised at the NHL and the Department of Player Safety for coming up with this 4-game suspension, because I thought, quite honestly, it was twice as bad as what Austin Matthews did to Rasmus Dahlin. Mm-hmm. Twice as bad in that, he got him right square in the face, full you're eating Sherwood, buddy. Blood. Injury, didn't come back for the rest of the game. Yeah. Egregious, and he slashed his stick out of his hand first, so there was no way to defend himself. As Dops likes to call it, there's no willing combatant there. Yeah. So I was really quite impressed by the old Department of Player Safety, and I can't say that very often. And I've been very, very critical of them in the past, and I probably will be very, very critical of them in the future. But kudos to them when they deserve them, and I think they deserve it right now.
It's almost like did George Peros just have a kid or something like that? Like, just all of a sudden he cares about people's safety. It's this weird new leaf that has been turned over here.
Wow, they don't like that one. They don't like those ones. There's a lot of stuff they like, but they don't like it when a guy gets a stick right up in a guy's grill. Yeah.
They don't like it. He's been fined $5,000, the maximum allowable
under the CBA.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, that's the meme, right?
Yeah.
So it's they can talk about how they don't like it all the time, and they do, but they don't always do a heck of a lot about it.
But when they do this, you can tell they really don't like that one.
Yeah. Great. So, should we just jump into Jeff Marek?
I guess so. Jump into Jeff Marek?
I don't know. I'm tired.
Yes, we should. Yes, we should, because there's a lot of meat on that bone, and it's a long one. So yeah, let's. Now
you want to say jump into Jeff Marek?
Roll the tape.
Roll the tape.
Well, it's a big day here for us, Dylan. We have with us again some hockey royalty, Jeff Marek of Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada. A jack of all trades, a master of many as well.
None.
Perhaps one of the most youthful looking guys still in the business, and a guy with an encyclopedic knowledge as well. Jeffy, how you doing, buddy? It's great.
Well, you know what, Dylan, Ken, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really impressed, Ken. You read that just as I wrote it up. That was incredible. The way you read that script that I presented for you. Yeah. And the only reason I have an encyclopedic memory when it comes to hockey is because I read books like this, which is one of my favorite. I will tell you one thing. Selling the Dream. I give this. So I've got 2 kids that still play AAA hockey, and
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So this is particularly salient for me, and I can't tell you how many parents I've given this book out to. I have a stack of books that I always love to give out. Whenever anyone asks, what should I be reading? If it's just fiction, I always go to John Kennedy Toole's Confederacy of Dunces. But when it's someone that wants something about hockey and minor hockey and kids and how parents should, wrap their minds around how they should behave around their children that want to play high-level hockey, this is the one that I go to, Selling the Dream. This is for every single hockey parent out there. This is really great stuff.
The only problem is that the people who need to hear that message
won't read it.
They don't want to hear it.
It is interesting, but you know what I find though is it gives people a lot of ammunition for conversation, because all the conversations in every rink are all being had at the same time, and the tone and the timbre is all the same. And essentially, what this does is it gives sane people bullets. Like it puts bullets in the chamber for sane people that have, the right perspective on everything, as opposed to, two dogs just sort of barking in between a fence at each other, which is what Twitter is for, Kenny. So
exactly. So where are your kids playing, Jeff?
So I've got one kid playing Ajax Pickering Raiders, APR, and my other kid is playing for the Markham Waxers. Rafi Torres is his coach, and the kids just adore him. Like, this is my youngest son. This is my 2012. I gotta sound like douchey hockey dad. This is my 2012, Kenny. I got a 2010 to 2012. So my 2010 is playing APR, and my 2012 is playing with Rafi Torres and the Waxers. It's actually Rafi's the only coach he's ever known. Like, Brody and Rafi's kid Ty have been buddies forever, and Rafi's been his only coach. And I'll tell you, I always think the same thing. Oh, Rafi Torres is your son's coach. Oh, it must be like a really rough team.
No,
he is. Like, I've never heard him scream at the kids. There's no ego there. Like, all the guys that have gone through it before and then come out the other side and are coaching, like, they're really calm. The one thing that I really find about having ex-NHLer or ex-pro players as minor hockey coach, and this is a sweeping generalization, and there are exceptions, certainly. There are, examples to the contrary. But generally, the coaches don't feel like they're on the team anymore. They coach. And I find that, in a lot of ways, the reactions of the coach are that of a player if they have an unfulfilled hockey history, or if they have an unfulfilled hockey past, or they feel ripped off by their hockey past. They don't think they're coaches. They still think they're on the team. And that's the reaction they have. I'm like, I've seen it before with my older son. I always look at the coach from the stands. I'm like, does he think he's on the team? Because that's the reaction a player has. That's not a reaction like a coach should have. Like, okay, this is a learning moment. This is how we teach. This is what we should be doing here, instead of just, whipping whiteboards and stamping your feet and screaming at officials or such. Anyway, a long-winded way of saying, folks, get this one. It's
great. And we all know that teams, good or bad, adopt the approach that their coach has all the time, right up to the NHL. I've found. So it's interesting. Well, that's good. That doesn't surprise me, hearing what you said about Rafi. Rafi's a great guy, and I think he would be a guy that you would say he's in it for the right reasons. He's in it for the right reasons, and he has something to offer. And I totally agree. I think Rafi Torres would be a great coach for young kids.
Yeah, we're lucky. Great. My wife and I always say, like, we're really lucky that Brody's got some outstanding coaching. He's got other good assistant coaches around him, but just like the development of these kids, like right away, like even within the first couple of months, shoom. And it's because I think a lot of it is they don't get hounded. Like, Rafi lets them be kids and puts them in positions where they're gonna make mistakes and doesn't micromanage everything, and understands the nature of what coaching this level of hockey is at. Anyway, he's been a treasure. He's been really good for our family.
Good.
To quote Michael Scott on that, you just got to talk to kids like they're anybody else, like they're adults, for God's sake.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's start some adult talk here, Dylan.
Yeah.
NHL talk.
I'll reserve suing the former player turned coaches, for a later podcast episode. Okay. Instead, let's talk about the Florida Panthers. They are now officially tied in the President's Trophy race with the Colorado Avalanche, although the Avs do technically have a game in hand. But what I'm curious about is, do you consider what Florida doing to be more impressive than the Avalanche, considering the division that the Cats are playing in?
Yeah, it's Atlantic stuff. No doubt about it. I wonder how much what we're seeing from the Florida Panthers is a reaction to them having sand kicked in their face for so many years. I mean, the Florida Panthers have been, the butt of a lot of jokes for a long time, whether it's attendance or performance, or everybody wants to play in Florida, but no one wants to play in the Panthers. Ha 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 ha. Like all that stuff that they've heard for so long. I wonder if this is just partially a reaction to that. Like, this is a team that puts up 6-7 goals on the regular. This is a team that doesn't take the foot off. And we've seen this before from teams that finally start to actualize. Like, you look at teams, I think, the way you look at players. And what was it Aristotle used to say? Things exist in two states, potentiality and actuality. And I think you can say that about teams. Like, for the longest time now, we've looked at Florida and there's like, okay, the potential is there. The potential is there. And now that they've actualized, when you first get that taste of it, it has to be seductive, and it has to, it's a situation, I think, for the Florida Panthers where, they've been the butt of the jokes for a long time, and now they're going to stick it to everybody else. So there's no idea that we're going to, pace ourselves through a season. We're going to sprint through the season. Why? Because we can. I look at veteran teams. Like I look at the Tampa Bay Lightning, for example. They are pacing themselves through a season. Now, Tampa didn't used to pace themselves through a season.
Nope.
And where did that get them in the playoffs? Out 4 straight after they played one period of hockey against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I understand the motivation for the Florida Panthers. I understand the idea of wanting to win every game by a margin of 6. I understand all of that. I just don't know what's going to happen here in playoffs. Whether if you have enough juice left after you've done this. Like I'm much more in tune with the team that says this is 82 games. There's going to be some tough nights. There's going to be some nights where you're not feeling it. I know fans hate to hear that I'm going to take the foot off the pedal for a couple of games here, but 82 games is long, and you got to save something for the playoffs. That would be like it's. Listen, Dylan, you're right. It's super impressive. I just don't know what's going to happen come playoff time. I like the team that paces itself.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, I thought the Toronto Maple Leafs were a team that was pacing itself last night. They looked very much like a team. No, seriously. They looked very much like a team that said, we are where we are. We're probably not moving up. We're probably not moving down.
I just wanted to see Matthews get in the post-game interview and say, we meant to do that.
Yeah. No, but they looked like that. But you bring up a good point, Jeff. And I think too, like, I don't know why it is. But it just seems to me that every team that follows this kind of pattern has to get that kick in the pills in the first round before they realize what it takes to get beyond the first round and to go on a run. And, we've seen it so many times. We saw it with Tampa. We saw it with we saw it with Washington for so many years. We saw it, so many times. These teams, they have to get that one sort of gut check reality, just excruciating blow in the playoffs to realize, okay, well, it is a different game in the playoffs, and we, like you say, we do have to pace ourselves here, and I could see that happening. I could see the Florida Panthers getting all the regular season awards, and maybe, being out in the second round. It's quite possible.
I think that extends to players as well, Kenny. I don't think that's just exclusive to teams. I think that there's one Hall of Famer that I talked to years ago who said at the beginning of the season, he would go up to his coach and say the same thing. And this is guys like obviously top dog on his team, and say, look, 30 games of the season, I'm going to look like a Hall of Famer. I'm going to be first star, and you're going to look at me and go, wow, this guy's one of the best players, if not the best player in the game, period. There'll be 30 other games where you can't find me. You can find me on the game sheet, but you're probably not going to be able to find me. And he said, for the rest of the other games, I'm just going to see how I feel that day. Now, as a fan, you hate to hear it, but I think as someone who observes a game and understands like how long 82 games is, don't you kind of understand it? Yeah. Like, don't you get that? Like, can you imagine how must you feel if you try to, if you go game 7, 82 times, and isn't that an unreal expectation that we have of players? And I think it's an unreal expectation that we should have as teams. And to the point about the Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres too, I think the only motivation would have been, for the Toronto Maple Leafs is, listen, this is something that, going back to the era of, Don Edwards and Bob Sauve with the Buffalo Sabres. This team, the Buffalo Sabres, have always owned the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? French Connection up against, the Sittler line, and doesn't matter. Like, it has been going on forever. It's the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, and it's completely impervious to where the teams are. Like, totally. The Sabres could be terrible. The Sabres could be great. The Sabres could be okay. They still kick the Leafs' ass. Like, it's just amazing how they seem to own this team, and they owned them this year. I mean, you could argue that the reason why the Leafs are kind of still jockeying for home ice is because of how they played against Buffalo this year. If they had taken care of business in those games, they'd be chasing Florida for first, not sort of hanging on for second.
A couple weeks ago, I was in Florida, West Palm at the GM meetings, and talked to Dubas, and one of the things we talked about was like, this idea, like we don't understand, like you can go in and beat Florida, Tampa, Colorado, like beat the heavyweight teams. And then, Arizona comes into town. Sure. Vejmelka stands on his head, but why does a team struggle? And Dubas was like, this is the ultimate frustration for us. Like we have a hard time getting up for teams that are lower than us in the standings or non-playoff teams. And I'm not sure how to react to that, to be honest with you, because part of me understands that. Part of me will look at that and say, well, come playoff time, there's not going to be any non-playoff teams that you face. So why should it really matter as long as you can get up for the big name teams? Like not every team has to be the 77 Habs here and just, run through the NHL season like a hog in the truffles. Like it's okay if you lose to a bottom feeding team, I guess, as long as you put it up against the top dogs.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the Florida Panthers right now are sitting on an 8-game win streak.
Yep.
Where they've beat teams both good and bad. And to your point, I agree with everything that you're saying, but I'd still rather a team just, win all the time, ideally, if that's an option.
Habs, I mean, what's the closest thing we've seen to a perfect team? That Montreal Canadiens squad. Yeah. Like that was, into the playoffs as well. Yeah, but I mean, like we run the table in the regular season and then just go lawnmower through the playoffs.
Yeah.
Man, that's hard.
It's
tough.
It really is.
It's really tough.
Yeah. I mean, even the Oilers teams, the dynasty teams, they paced themselves.
Well, and they also got that kick in the pills at the beginning.
Yes, that's right. That's that we talk about. Yeah, exactly. Hey, hockey fans, feel the action on the ice like never before with DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. Right now, new customers can bet just $1 on any team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, you can still hit the ice for cold hard cash. New customers can make their first deposit and play free for thousands with DraftKings daily fantasy hockey contests. Draft your lineup of 8 skaters and a goalie and rack up the points for goals, assists, saves, and more. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code THPN. Bet just $1 on any NHL team to win and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code THPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NHL. 21 plus restrictions apply.
So speaking of teams that have gotten lots of kicks in the pills, as it stands right now, the Florida Panthers will be playing the Washington Capitals in the first round. Certainly not a team to be taken lightly. And I mean that, of course, in the most literal sense of the term, because they play a heavy brand of hockey. Yep. How do you envision a series like that going?
Well, I think Panthers are going to try to skate all over them and try to, skate them into the ground. If it comes down to a goaltending duel, I think I know who I like in that fight. The interesting thing about the Washington Capitals is, by now, I think we all understand the reality of aging curves and how when players fall off, they fall off quickly. And you might point to Ovechkin and say, well, what about him? Well, they're certainly outliers to all of this. On the one hand, you'd never want to count out a veteran team in the playoffs. Those are generally the teams that tend to do well. But then, and again, it's different for every team. Like, at what point does veteran just turn into old?
Right.
There's that space there, right? And every team eventually crosses over into it.
Old and slow. Yeah.
We've wondered about that with Washington for a number of years. Is this finally the season where, the reality of aging curves, because, what's the only thing that's undefeated? Time. Like, time is undefeated. Like, what happens when time catches up to the Washington Capitals? And too many times I've said it's now, and then they've, defied whatever logic I've thrown out there. So I always come a little bit shy of saying, okay, that's it. They're done. They're too old, too slow. The boots are full of lead. They can't do this anymore. I've said that too many times, been proven wrong.
Right.
But when you couple an aging curve with questionable goaltending, even though Washington's played better lately,
I mean,
it's pretty obvious that they're done with Samsonov. And Vanacek hasn't exactly been fantastic, certainly lately. Not exactly. I mean, this worst kept secret that they were out fishing for Marc-Andre Fleury, who didn't want to, sign with the or waive to go to the Washington Capitals, or I guess he wouldn't have to waive, just agree to go to the Washington Capitals since it's a handshake deal. Because I think we all expect that he'll be in Pittsburgh next season, unless Minnesota somehow can re-sign him. They got goaltending problems. And when you have goaltending problems in the playoffs, that gets amplified pretty fast. And when you get old, and when you make that transition from veteran to old, it gets pretty obvious pretty quick.
And it can get ugly too. And Jeff, I mean, Pittsburgh is my kryptonite in that respect. Like every year, like we know the day of reckoning is coming. We know it's coming. We just don't know when it's going to be. And we always think it's going to be that year. Yeah. And it never is. But I have a theory on the Washington Capitals and I'd like to pose it to you and see what you think. I think the Washington Capitals, they've lost in the first round every year since they won the Stanley Cup. I think one of the problems with the Washington Capitals is they've got their legacy. They won their Stanley Cup and they're okay with it. They're okay with it. I think they're completely satisfied with having won that one cup and getting Ovi his one cup. And again, I also think that this Ovi-centricness of it all takes away from a lot of other stuff too, because now it just seems to me like all anybody cares about is whether or not he breaks Wayne Gretzky's record. Like nobody talks about the Capitals winning the Stanley Cup. Nobody talks about, all of these other things. All anybody talks about is Ovi's going to break Wayne Gretzky's scoring record. And I think to their detriment. I really think that it's a mindset too. And I think they figure we've won our cup. We did our thing. It was great. We had the great parties and we gave this fan base, something they can hang on to for the next 25 years. And we're good with that.
I think there's a lot to that. And I think that's what happens when you're an older team and you win the Stanley Cup. Like if they would have won, like when was the first time, Kenny, that we really thought Washington was going to win the Stanley Cup? 2010.
Yeah.
Right. 2010. And then they got starched by Camilleri and Halak. And
Halak said no.
Yeah, Halak said no. That's right. Halak said no. Like that was the first time we really looked at Washington and said, ooh, this team. And there were like minor eruptions here and there. Like there was that time, Boudreau was still coaching the team and Lindy Ruff was coaching the Dallas Stars, and both teams were just like, hey man, we're playing pond hockey and this is fun. And those two teams were must watch. And we're thinking like, oh man, how great would hockey be if these two teams met in the Stanley Cup final? Because as we all know, copycat league, you're going to ape whatever is successful the year before. And man, if we can get Dallas and Washington somehow into so there have been like eruptions along the way, but it took them a long time. The chase was long. There weren't many successes along the way. To your point, Penguins were the kryptonite for the Washington Capitals, and there was that frustration. And when they finally broke through, I kind of look at it like this. I look at it like, if you're a team that has to grind for every single goal, like goals are hard to score. If you're a team that has to grind for every single goal, man, when you finally score, like you realize like, oh man, okay, that's a lot of work. It's like, it's Sisyphus, right? And now the rock goes down and here we go again to score a goal. Yeah. And I think when you're an older team and you finally get there, I wonder how much it's like, okay, mission accomplished. What's the old saying? You can't eat if you're not hungry. Or the great boxing saying it's hard to get up at 5 a.m. Hagler used to say this one. It's hard to get up at 5 a.m. to do road work when you're going to sleep in silk pajamas. Like it's really tough. Voltaire talked about this, about societies, they rise with the sound of wooden clogs going up the stairs and they fall with the sounds of silk slippers going down the stairs. Like I just wonder, like once you get to that spot, and it's the old story, it's the Rocky story. Is it harder to get there or harder to stay there? And it feels like a lot when you finally, this is like I'm giving weight to what you're saying, because I believe it. Yeah. And you're right. The pivot was fast. The pivot went from Cup to Gretzky. Like right away. That was the story. Yeah. And that was the frame around the whole thing. I think there's probably something to that. They finally got what they wanted. And it took them a long time, and it does certainly feel, I mean, certainly not if you ask anyone publicly, but it does feel like they're kind of content with that.
And this is what I like about having Jeff Marek on our show.
The philosophy references?
Well, no, but he's a hockey guy that talks about Sisyphus and Voltaire. And I think he brought up, didn't you bring up like Aristotle earlier in the comment?
I gotta listen. When I was at university,
see, I'm a big one. I'm a big one on all the philosophers, Plato, Socrates, those guys. Yeah, that's an old Steve Martin joke, actually.
That is a great one. Listen, when I was at university at Guelph, I tried to educate myself out of a job. I studied English and philosophy, and damn it, I ended up in sports media and hockey media, and I'm trying to make my degree relevant somehow. As pretentious as that may sound now, guys.
Do you ever need a fridge that you have a degree and he doesn't?
What's that?
Do you ever needle Frege that you have a degree and he doesn't?
I mean, well, I'll needle him whenever Guelph beats Western in sports. In hockey a couple of years ago, but he could go back tomorrow and pick up like one more credit. And
of course he did. Could he's like one short. Yeah.
But he never gives me a chance to, because he always brings it up himself. Like, he'll talk about going to Western, although he never graduated, and he always So he's like sort of cutting me off at the pass. He doesn't give me a chance to ridicule him about that. Anything to ridicule about not getting the degree, but no, he never gives me a chance to lay into him.
That's funny.
There's a word for you here, Jeff. Overqualified.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know. I still think I'm underqualified for this gig, to be honest. I was not trained for any of this. This is the most accidental. Like, to me, this is like, I've had like what I describe as a talking head's career. I'm like David Byrne. Like, how did I get here? You may find yourself like that's kind of how I feel. Like, somehow I'm talking to two guys that know way more about hockey than me, and I'm kind of faking the funk and going along with it and making some hockey sounds here. And
if you're faking it, Jeffy, you're doing a hell of a job, because
put it this way. Yeah. Every 2 weeks, a paycheck shows up and someone yells, "Stop thief." That's how I feel. That's how I feel about all of it.
Look,
total fraud.
I had a friend who was going over to the queue, and he was concerned that he didn't speak any French, and all I said, and I taught him how to say pucks in deep, and that's all that he needed to know.
Yeah.
So,
comment dit en français, pucks in deep? Comment dit en français?
Dit-on pucks in deep.
We're not doing that today.
C'est bien ça.
La rondelle on depth.
We're getting way off topic here. But it's wonderful. I was trying to figure out if there was a joke about the Olympic wrestling and Ovi doing the shirtless push-ups in the pond and the oil, but there's nothing there.
Yeah,
I tried
so don't force it. Just let's move on.
Yeah, no, I know.
Let's move on.
I failed.
We have a busy man here, right?
We do have a busy man here. So,
I could sit here having my morning coffee. Like, I'm so busy. Gonna talk about hockey on the radio. Ooh.
So, I mean, lost in the whole shuffle though here, and I think that part of the reason why Ovechkin, the Gretzky's talk started, was because I remember in that off season after he won the cup, a lot of people that were kind of close to Washington and in Washington media were saying Ovi's hungry for another. People think that he's not hungry, but he's loving his life right now. He's hungry for another. And so he came out of the gate flying the next year and putting up goals. And that kind of is the genesis, which has a Greek root word, of the of that talk going into Ovi Gretzky, and it might have, his hunger for his next cup might have kind of been the thing to overshadow this. Anyways,
I think that I think injuries got in the way certainly for a lot of his team. I don't know that if the entire squad was as inspired as Alexander Ovechkin and Nicholas Backstrom and John Carlson. And I think that, when you lose pieces, like, man, you lose like Andre Burakovsky. Like when you start to lose guys like that, like I know they're not the headline guys, but all your support pieces and your secondary scoring guys, and then you have soft seasons from Yevgeny Kuznetsov, whose game just completely vanishes to the point where you're like, we're done with the act here, and we need to move on.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't doubt that Ovechkin wanted to win more. I just don't know if everybody around him felt the same way.
That's true.
Fair enough. Yeah. Speaking of Evgeny Kuznetsov, he this year has 72 points in 70 games. And this after all those rumors that you just alluded to, that he was on the trading block.
He was absolutely.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, where there's that much smoke, there's usually fire. But has he made himself invaluable to this team at this point? Like if they're planning on running it back and trying again at next year?
I think so. I don't know that whether he has had a really good season. I still think that in the back of everybody's mind, though, there's the potential for him to revert back. So it still does make him. If you wanted to move on from Kuznetsov, I mean, that'll be a really tough deal. Like he's still in the process of like undoing a lot of really average play and some really average seasons. So I think they're married to him either way. I'm just glad for Washington's sake that he's making the best of the situation right now. And I listen, you win Stanley Cups in net, you win Stanley Cups, up the middle, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, as long as they're both playing great, that does answer a lot of your questions.
Yeah.
So last one about the Washington Capitals here. After a not so stellar year, GM Brian McClellan suggested that his team was not going to be aggressive at the trade deadline, and surprise, surprise, they weren't. They only added a couple of depth pieces to the forward core. Yet, since the trade deadline, they've gone 6-2 and are currently on a 4-game winning streak. My question is this: will Ovechkin have the quietest 50-goal season of his career?
A lot of people got off Ovechkin when Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like it's the elephant in the room here, guys. Like he went from the lovable Russian goal scorer to the guy that won't take the picture of him and Vladimir Putin off his social media.
Right.
And he became, for a lot of people, a quite unlikable person. Mm-hmm. Like the Ovechkin phenomenon is fascinating. He comes to the NHL and he's the lovable, goofy guy who's trying to do every interview in English, even though he doesn't have any command of the language. And we all love them for it. And he's scoring highlight goals off his back in Arizona. And he's
doing the hot stick and
doing all of it. Like he became the lovable guy, and then he wasn't. Right. And then there was this era where it was sort of everybody turns on Ovechkin, wins the Stanley Cup, and he's swimming in fountains and all that, and everybody loves Ovechkin again. And then the real life situation with the Russian invasion of Ukraine happens. And we all know about the past associations with Alex Ovechkin and Vlad Putin. And it made people, I think really think about who they're cheering for and why they're cheering for him. And is there a bigger issue here than, wow, we like to watch that guy with the big slap shots in the OV spot score goals. And I think that's really put a dent in how people feel about, what once was this fun-loving, Russian goal scorer chasing, Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record. I think it's really put a damper on that. Like you can be happy only to a certain point for Alex Ovechkin. I honestly, I really do think that as this chase continues, the fact that he has this tight association and has always shown clear and unwavering support for Vladimir Putin, I think that this really does hamper how people feel about it, or inform how people feel about him right now. And I think people are pretty uncomfortable about the whole thing.
For me, it's the disingenuousness of it, because he basically is a founding member of Team Putin. And then he'll just come out and say, well, none of this is under my control. I'm just a hockey guy. I'm not a politics guy. Well, you clearly were a politics guy, not very long ago. And so you can't sort of have your foot in one camp and in another as well. Yeah. And that to me is kind of what's really unsettling about a lot of this too.
Yeah, I always try to catch myself too, because in this conversation, like I'm talking from the back seat. I don't have a single hand on the wheel here. This is Ovechkin and a very real life situation, and I get it. Like hypocrisy is the greatest luxury. Like if you live your life, man, if you can live your life as a hypocrite, that is the greatest luxury. If you can live based on, I live one way, but everybody else has to live a completely different way. That's fine. I think at a certain point, is it hypocritical of Ovechkin? Absolutely. I don't think we can. There's no way you can stick handle or finesse any way out of that conversation. But I always think to myself too, at a certain point, doesn't this just become about basic survival? And somehow, sometimes like you have to be a hypocrite to survive. And right now with his family there and the uncertainty of that man and that government and how that person could behave towards you or your family, I get it. And listen, given a choice between being a hypocrite and protecting my family, I know what I'm choosing. Call me a hypocrite all you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I always have to catch myself and say, I get it. This guy's trying to survive right now. And
that's a good point,
I can knock him. I can knock him.
Yeah.
We all can.
Yeah.
That guy's trying to survive right now.
Yeah. Good point.
I think that lost in these conversations often is just how insidious manipulated media can be, et cetera, et cetera. And, I've got somebody who's close to me, not related by blood, but related, who is from Russia, but has lived in Ukraine for a long time. And her family is still in Ukraine. And she was a huge Putin supporter. Mm-hmm. Well, now her mother's starving because of this invasion. And all of a sudden, the facts that she took for granted growing up in the world that she grew up in terms of Putin's great, he's saving he's saving our nation, blah, blah, blah. She all of a sudden is being confronted with, and it confuses her. And so it's the same thing with, I won't get too political, but it's the same thing with a lot of issues here. It's the same thing with a lot of the people that we've seen, throw their support against with Trump and stuff like this. We see this all the time, where I think that we have to weight responsibility between the fact that, yes, these people are making a bad decision, but they're also in some ways a victim of a situation. And it's a difficult one, but I completely agree with you.
But you hang on, you can't hang on. We want to make everything in life about we want to make everything in life binary. Like this, want to make it ones and zeros, and that's it, because it makes us more comfortable if the world exists like that. But the world doesn't exist like that. Like you are able, like to the point about this person you're talking about. You're allowed to be like, I always joke about my friends like, oh yeah, he's a nice bunch of guys or she's a nice bunch of girls, like but we're all a bunch of different people, and you're allowed to, I think, to have all these different feelings, and a lot of them conflict. Like that's what makes us human beings at a certain point. And then that you hope that by the time you have like one foot in the coffin and one foot on a banana peel, you kind of figure it out before you're done. And many of us, most of us, I would argue, don't. Like you're allowed, like that's part of being human. Learning and confronting yourself and challenging yourself, and confronting different ways that you've thought before. And when context changes, it's okay for you to change your opinion. Maynard Keynes, the great economist, once said, when he was caught flip-flopping on some issue, he said, well, when the context change, I change my opinion. What, pray tell, do you do?
Yeah, that's evolving.
That's called evolving, right?
Yeah.
Like you're allowed. Like I don't think your friends should feel awful about having conflicted feelings when situations are changing all at the same time. What's the old saying? You can't step into the same river twice. It's true, because context is still king. Everything is always changing, and you are allowed to have conflicting emotions and conflicting feelings about things that you felt were so true 5 minutes ago. It's okay to say 5 minutes later, I don't think that's true anymore. Yeah. And I think as a group of people, by the way, specifically on social media, I think we have to cut people that slack, because right now we just want to say, you're a one or you're a zero. You're a one, you're a zero. You're a one, you're a zero. That is a runway into a wall. I really believe we got to cut people a lot more slack than that and allow people to have conflicted feelings all at the same time. It's part of being human.
Wow. All right.
Completely agree.
Okay, so the Capitals power play. Anyway,
I didn't see it going there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the NCAA guys that signed.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely.
Where do you want to start?
To be a podcast that makes people think. We just didn't specify about what.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, no. That's good. Look,
that's why we have you.
That conversation has more importance to the world than anything else we're going to talk about. So speaking of things that have no real bearing on the world, let's talk talk about some NCAA players.
Oh, let's talk about Bobby Brink. Here we go.
He's on the list. So I'm gonna just run down a list, and I just want to hear yours and Ken's. Give me like a 2-minute, almost like an elevator pitch on these folks. I'm going to say the name. Tell me what you're thinking.
I want to ask Jeff something first. So they're bringing in, Buffalo brought in Owen Power. Yeah. Seattle's brought in Matty Beniers. Phoenix or Arizona's brought in Nate Smith.
Stealing all the names on the list.
So anyways, it's an interesting thing, like, because now it's become standard practice that these guys are going to sign and burn that year off their entry-level contract. It doesn't burn off a year towards free agency, but it does burn a year off that entry-level contract. Yeah. It's interesting that the teams are so willing to do that now. And I'm wondering, with the top-end guys, I can't imagine you want to get them through entry-level more quickly than they're going to go through, but maybe you do. You do. Yeah, I guess you do, but because then it leads to that longer deal, I guess, and maybe they haven't accomplished as much. But on the player side too, I mean, I guess it doesn't really mean that much, but these are incentive-laden deals for these guys. They're never going to hit those bonuses in the first year of their contract. So, it's an interesting sort of push and pull, isn't it?
I think the kids all want to play and want to have their NHL taste and their NHL experience right away. And I think for the team, because I always wondered about that too. Like, oh, don't you want that? Keep that extra year of control and all that. Yeah. And then I had one manager tell me, like, look, the second contract, the bridge generally is gone for a lot of these guys. Like, you come out of it and you ring the bell. And he said, look, I would rather negotiate that second contract, which generally is, the big one for these guys, based on 2 years of performance
2 years rather
instead
than
of 3. You know what that third year is like for a pro player. That's like, okay, now I'm feeling it. Now I get it. Now I'm putting up some points. I'm really, I'm really, proving my worth here. He said, look, I would rather, we're all sounding like, prospectors here. Oh, there's gold in them hills. Like, I'd rather prospect and think about and project out what these guys are going to be like. And he said, like, look, I would rather, for my team, I have a better chance of getting a team-friendly deal after 2 years than after 3. After 3, I could really be stuck here. So the kids want to play. Teams want to get a better deal. To me, it's kind of a hand-to-glove situation here.
And I think this year, too, it's – and I don't know if this is much of a factor, but the Buffalo Sabres can tell Owen Power, and the Seattle Kraken can tell Matty Beniers, and these teams can tell these guys, you're not going to the World Juniors this year. Sorry. It's an August tournament. You're going to miss out on a lot of training. It's going to be a really, really crucial time for you. You're not going to play in that tournament this year, and they now they can just say it. Whereas if you don't have the guy signed, there's not much you can do, right? But here you can just say, you're not going.
Yeah. With a player like Owen Power, I wonder, because that's a fight with Pat Brisson. That's not. They just had a big fight with Pat Brisson over Jack Eichel. Like, I know exactly what you're saying, and I think by now, like, the kids just want to have their pro careers, and I think the majority of them, and I think everyone's on the same page here. Like, and I know the feeling is, it'll be like a little mini training camp for them. No, it'll be the potential to get injured. I know the potential is there every time you step on the ice, but I'm with you. I think a lot of these guys, anyhow, are once they sign their pro deals, get that taste of the NHL. Yeah, they're not going back. Like,
although I was talking to Mason McTavish about a month and a half ago.
Man, he's good.
Oh yeah. And I didn't even get the question completely out of my mouth about the World Juniors, and he said, "I'm going." He says, "I'm going. If Anaheim lets me go, I'm there." No, but I mean, he hasn't had that opportunity like a lot of other guys have. But it's interesting because the kids. Generally they'll probably all want to play, but their agents and their teams will be telling them, this probably is not the best idea.
Right. The thing about Mason McTavish is too, and now that Ryan Getzlaf is retiring, like, the plan for Mason McTavish, like, they love him. I know Dallas Eakins really loves Mason McTavish, and they love him there. Like, I think ultimately, once that guy figures out the NHL, once he arrives there, up the gut. I know, as much as everyone's in love with Trevor Zegras, who do you think is going to be the first line center there? Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Zegras. I think it's McTavish. I think McTavish is the guy. He's the more, like, Zegras gives you the highlights and the sizzle and all that. It's great. Like he's a one-man marketing machine for the NHL. Like that goal against the Buffalo Sabres, him and Sonny Milano, that did more to promote the game of hockey than anything the NHL has come up with, to the point where when he wasn't going to the All-Star game, they had to figure out a way, the NHL and ESPN both wanted him in. They had to figure out a way to get him into the All-Star game somehow. But if you're a coach and you're tapping someone on the shoulder late in the game, sitting on a 1-goal lead, who's getting that tap? Mason McTavish and Trevor Zegras. Like I think Mason McTavish.
Oh, for sure.
Like, look at Arizona. Like Arizona shopping around Jacob Chikrin. I believe the ask would be something like Mason McTavish, Olin Zellweger, and a first-round pick.
Yeah, that's a big ask. And he's to great. Me, McTavish, you're right about everything you're saying about him. And I think Zegras will be the number 2 behind him. And it will be to his benefit because
completely.
I mean, Mace McTavish is going to do all the heavy lifting. Yeah. He's going to do all the heavy lifting. And then Zegras is going to get better matchups and he's going to be able to do things like he's doing right now. And I think that's what you want, right? That's a dream. Yeah. That's a dream.
Yep. It really is. I got all day from McTavish. All day.
And you've also got that situation like Pittsburgh had with Malkin and Crosby, where if you need it, you load them up on the line for, down in the third. And then if you don't need it, then you've got 2 excellent lines. So
not a problem. Like that prospects pipeline for Anaheim looks really good. I know it's tough sledding right now, and they let go of a lot of really high-end talent, and they've taken more than probably one step back, but that one hurts. Yeah. Delorier hurts in more ways than one. Yeah. A little bit of a blanket, and also, man, he was a really good penalty killer.
Yeah,
Nick Delorier is a really, really really good penalty killer. I wonder if he comes back. Thing is, I wonder if he goes back. I wonder if he goes back. The thing is, I can't believe. So a year before he finally, he got, obviously we know he got dealt to Minnesota. The year before, there were teams that were trying to get him at deadline. You know what the price that Bob Murray wanted? A first-round pick.
Wow.
Like that was the price for Nick Delorier. Like Bob Murray knew, for all of Bob Murray's faults, like he knew what that guy meant to the team. And then Anaheim had that game against Arizona, and I had one.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Troy Terry ends up getting his face pummeled if Nick Delorier is even on the bench in the lineup. Yeah.
So. Not a chance. Anyhow.
Yeah. All right.
So let's do this.
Okay.
Tell me what you're thinking. Owen Powers.
Power.
Owen Power. I thought he was related to Austin somehow.
The way he played last night?
I've done that so many times. I put S's on the end of...
are you Latvian? Or you put an S on the end of everything? No. Is that why?
Jeff, do you know Maria Mountain? Do you know Maria Mountain? Do you know Maria Mountain, the strength and conditioning coach?
I don't.
She's like the top goaltending strength and conditioning coach in the country, maybe the world. Okay. And I had her on another podcast, and I kept on saying mountains. And so when she tweeted out the announcement that she was on this podcast, she'd put hashtag, that's my stripper name.
There you go. And it's Maddie Beniers, not Benier.
Yeah, okay.
So just so we've got this straight,
just
okay?
so that we got this.
So Owen Power.
Can we just get the Jack Power? Can we just get the Jack McBains here and be on with it? What's not to love? What's not to love about a 6'6" defenseman that skates like that? Moves well. I mean, you're seduced by the size. I remember watching him play with the Reps too, and I thought that there was a really good player in there, but man, his development just like shot off the pages over the last few seasons. It's interesting. I had a conversation with someone not too long ago about, and this is something, Ken, that you've written about, exceptional status in the OHL.
Right.
And Jack Hughes was denied exceptional status.
He was.
Into the Ontario Hockey League. And there is a belief that by not allowing Hughes, not granting Hughes exceptional status, certainly it cost the OHL Quinn Hughes. And there's some thinking, according to one person I talked to, that it might have cost him Owen Power as well.
Interesting. But I would agree it might have been the best thing to happen to Jack Hughes. He would have been going to Guelph. He was an undersized kid. He went off to do what he did with the U.S. national program, and look at him now, And to me, like the exceptional status, it's interesting because what I like about how they do it is it's an arm's length committee
Yes.
from Hockey Canada. So Dave Branch can't say we're going to take this kid. And
he can lobby.
I know
he can lobby, and
he can lobby. He can absolutely lobby. And I'm telling you right now, he is lobbying for Michael Misa to get that status.
Big time.
For sure. But what I like about it is I know some of the people on this committee, and I trust them as hockey people and as people just generally. And whether they make the right choice or the wrong choice, because they're going to make right choices and wrong choices. Sean Day obviously wasn't the right choice. Aaron Ekblad and a lot of other guys were the right choice. They do it with the player's best. The only thing they think of is the player's best interest. Is this going to be something that is going to help or hurt this player? Can this player handle this on and off the ice, or can't he do it? And that's what I like about it. So if we see Michael Misa, and I mean, 3 guys have applied, the other 2 aren't getting it. Trevor Moore and Ryan Rubrick are not going to get it. Michael Misa may. None of them might get it, but if he gets it, I'm very confident knowing that he will have gone through a process that indicates that he's ready to accept that challenge.
It's April 13th, and there's no word. I have to think that's good for, well, Wasserman represents Misa. I would have to think that's good for that camp, because I believe the word was supposed to come down, Kenny, around OHL Cup time. So
at first they thought it was, at first it's always been before OHL Cup. They've always done it before OHL Cup. Now
the fact that it's here we are on the 13th, there's no word. Like I was told, like all 3, no way. And then the OHL Cup happened, and that's what Misa shattered all the records and McDavid's records, and they all went, okay, let's maybe let's revisit this here. And then all of a sudden, like, listen, I know the Chicago Steel won them, right? And I may take a transition with prep school, like you go to Shattuck, New Jersey, or wherever. But like the USHL is on him now. Not that you make a consideration just based on we don't want to lose him to the United States, but still, like, the pressure's on.
Adam Fantilli, right? It's Adam Fantilli.
Adam Fantilli.
Adam Fantilli went to Chicago. He's in Chicago now, and he's going to the University of Michigan for his first year before his draft. He'll probably be a 1-year guy, and then he's gone. And then OHL doesn't get him. So,
but I'd have to think, though, here we are at the 13th, and there's no decision that weighs well, or that looks good for his chances of getting exceptional status. I mean, they love the tangents. They have to tell teams like before the draft, right? Like, was the draft 29th? Like, is he available?
That would be good. And they have a combine. Not that he would ever have to go to it, but they've got a combine. I think not this weekend, but next weekend, the OHL combine. So.
And they have a lottery on. What is the lottery on the 18th? I think.
It's the day. It's the day after the season ends, because the four non-playoff teams are going to be in the lottery. So they're I mean. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Kind of got to find out here, like.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we were talking about Owen Power, which was good.
Owen Power.
I love the tangents we go off on with Jeff. Like, it's just great. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I didn't think that we were going to have enough time. Now I'm going to have to cut us. Ken, do you want to weigh in on Owen Power before we move on to the next player?
Well, I just think that all he has to do is play every game in his career like he played his first one, and he'll be a really, really great player. I thought he was outstanding last night.
This podcast has gone too long, because we just talked about at the beginning how you can't play every game in your career like that.
No, but like he was.
Yeah, it's great.
He looked like he looked like Alex Tuck said. He looked like a 10-year veteran out there.
For the first time in how long have we said, I think the Buffalo Sabres are going to be okay? Like Jack Quinn coming, JJ Peterka coming, Owen Power is like. For the first time in a while, I think we're looking at it and saying, I think they're going to be all right.
Jeff, their oldest defenseman last night was Casey Fitzgerald.
I know, right?
At the age of 24 with 30 games of NHL experience. That was their oldest defenseman in the lineup last night.
That does wink at one issue, which is it's fine to run with kids, and that's great, but what's the Oilers example? The Oilers example is you can't just load it with kids here. You need to have the right veterans, and you can't, again, we'll go back to the Oilers example. It can't be... guys, I mean, Ryan Smith is the obvious example, brought Ryan Smith back. It still needs to be players that can relate to a younger player. Like, it can't be the guy who's 35 years old and has got 3 kids. He's got hustle all over the place, because his life is way different than someone that's 22 years old. So you need that, like, 25, what is it? You figured 25 to 29. like guys that are in that sort of sweet spot of the bat, like they're a little bit older, but can still relate to the younger. Those are hard to find. I get it. Those are hard to find.
Or you bring in Craig Anderson, who can have a son who's 22. If he had the kid at 18, the math works.
I love the Craig Anderson story. Give me more of that. I love listen, I know it came down to a decision between Craig Anderson and Devin Dubnyk for the Buffalo Sabres once because I think they were talking with Edmonton about Koskinen last year at free agency, and then that vanished. Ullmark ends up signing with the Boston Bruins. I think that surprised the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, geez, they protected him in the expansion draft on an expiring contract, thinking they could get him, and then boom, that went away.
Yeah, it's not ready yet.
Devin Levi's on the horizon, but he's going back to Northeastern. Yeah, I think one of the things that they wanted with Craig Anderson, Dylan, this is to your point. I think it's a good one. One of the reasons why they wanted Craig Anderson, he's still a very competent netminder, but two, really good around kids. Yeah, like really great around younger players. Like honestly, that was a huge factor in who they were bringing in here. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think a guy like Kyle Okposo is the same thing. I mean, he's obviously his better days are behind him. He's not playing on the fourth line. He's also playing on the power play. But anyways, but I think a guy like that, Jeff Skinner, you've got some guys in there that are pretty decent in that respect of the game.
Yeah. So, I just want Buffalo. I just want Buffalo to be good.
Oh God, so do I. It's so much better, man. And it's so much better when Buffalo's good. Yeah. Like it's so much better. And like there's just been. I just feel like Buffalo has sucked out too much of the oxygen for too long. Like there's been way too much drama around the Buffalo Sabres than there should be for a team that's that bad. Yeah. So I want to see them get better. I just love it when Buffalo's good. I love it. I love going to the games. I love going over the border. I love the atmosphere at the rink. It's so much better when the Buffalo Sabres are a good team.
Yeah. And for the first time in how long, I can finally say I think they're going to be okay. Like I think they're going to be fine. And who thought that after the Jack Eichel deal, right?
Yeah.
And like, sure, there've been some Hail Mary passes, but they've landed. Like, man, did anyone here on this podcast think that Tage Thompson was going to be a first line center?
No, and at the Stanley Cup final in 2019 after during the celebration and everything, I'm with Mike Harrington of the Buffalo News and Doug Armstrong sees Mike's credential from the Buffalo News and he says without prompting, he says, I'm going to tell you right now, this trade looks really bad for Buffalo, but it's going to even out. This kid is going to be really good. This kid's going to even out this trade, and he's doing it now. He's doing it.
He looks great. Tuck looks great. We'll see about Peyton Krebs. That's still going to take a while. The interesting thing about Krebs, it's interesting. You go back to the Vancouver draft where he was selected, and you had the Achilles injury that year in the Western Hockey League. He was on Buffalo's do not draft list. And and now the only reason was because of the injury. So the way the way the do not, just for your listeners and viewers can understand it, the way the do not draft lists generally work is we're not going to take them at all, because if Peyton Krebs is available in the third round, Buffalo are taking him, but just in the area where we think he's going to go, find another player. And a lot of that was because of that injury. So it wasn't like they didn't want it. They just didn't want him in that zone where he was going to get selected. But, in true Buffalo fashion, I suppose in some ways, he's gone from being on the do not draft list from the Sabres to being one of, if not the key piece that goes back in the Jack Eichel.
He was on the do not draft but trade for 3 years later after
for a franchise center.
For a franchise center. Yeah, when that blows up. Oh man. All right, Bobby Brink. I don't know much about Bobby Brink, so don't ask me. But Jeff.
So the first thing, high production. We saw him play with the Philadelphia Flyers. Played in his first game. I've checked in on Philadelphia about Bobby Brink. So they see him as a middle six winger. With a lot of power play upside. He's a real good scorer, real good engine, works hard, all of it. The only thing is with Bobby Brink, and this matters less than ever before, the only player smaller than him on the Flyers is Cam Atkinson.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. It's only size. But the interesting thing about, Bobby Brink is we know the Philadelphia Flyers are not going to go through a rebuild. Like they never, this is still the fumes of Ed Snyder. There will be no rebuild here at all. We're coming right back at it. We're coming right back at it next season. And you wonder where, players.
Well, you better sign Johnny Gaudreau then. You better sign Johnny Gaudreau.
They might.
That's what you better do. That's what you better do.
You know who I wonder about there, Ken? Nazem Kadri. Nazem Kadri to me looks and feels and plays like a Philadelphia Flyer type player. Skill, snarl, little bit dirty. Like that's the one. Like I'm with you on Gaudreau, and that's the local boy goes home story.
Exactly.
That plays. I wonder about Kadri there. That's the guy that I watch for next season with Philadelphia.
Interesting.
Another sidebar. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
A lot of the Philadelphia Flyers played 7 tough games in the 70s, and they're from then on the Broad Street Bullies.
Oh, I don't know. They played a lot more than
they played a lot of tough games.
All right, so I'm being a little facetious here, but my point being that in the last 15 years, when was the Keith Primo years? That was 2003-ish. Mm-hmm. That was the last time that they were a tough team.
Yeah,
and they still have that kind of,
you had Legion of Doom. You had, I mean, they've got that aura, but it's a culture. It's part of their DNA, right? Yeah. Their organizational DNA. So
you guys want to hear a great you guys want to hear a great Fred Shero story? I love telling the story.
I would
maybe have you heard the Fred Shero bacon and egg story?
No. Let's hear it.
So this is I love this. I loved Fred Shero, right?
He's awesome.
Just a wonderful coach. Like one of the only
kid's pretty good guy too.
Not too shabby.
Yeah.
So this is when the Philadelphia Flyers riding high and winning Stanley Cup. So it's the mid 70s. And they're destroying teams, and they're into Pittsburgh one night. And this is when Pittsburgh was a really bad squad, and they lose. They go out the night before, and they end up losing 6-1. Like the Penguins just from stem to stern batter them, right? And Fred Shero the next day at practice is one of those practices where it's just not a single puck hits the ice. It's just down and back, 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 down and back. And the guys come off, and they're all in the room, and their tongues are all hanging out, and Fred comes in. So it was pretty bad last night, gentlemen. And I heard you guys coming off the ice, and there was a lot of talk about, I made a contribution on my shift, and I did something. I made a contribution here. And he walks over the chalkboard, draws a plate, and he draws 2 eggs and 3 strips of bacon. He goes, gentlemen, this is what I had.
It's
for
coming
breakfast.
to me now. Yeah.
This is what I had for breakfast. This tells me everything I expect out of you as a Philadelphia Flyer. And the guys are like, Fog's at it.
I know where you're going with it.
He said, made a contributions. On my breakfast plate this morning, the chicken made a contribution, but the pig made a commitment.
A commitment.
And that's what I expect of you.
Yes, I did hear that story. And that's a great one. That is a great one. Oh man.
There you go. There's my Freddie Shero Flyer story.
We're off to Matty Beniers, who is just all kinds of good. Just all kinds of good. He's going to be the first line centerman right now, and that's the end of it.
I wonder if Ron Francis drafted a version of himself or someone that he saw as himself. 200-foot guy, skilled guy, can play both sides of the puck, walks right in. I very much get the feeling that Seattle next year, I don't know if you can completely redo it or start over again, but that's kind of the way it feels heading into next season. It's going to be Seattle saying, let's try this again. Plus, we already have Matty Beniers,
right?
And I wonder if that's going to be the vibe with the Seattle Kraken in the offseason. But Beniers, I just wonder if that's Ron Francis saying, "I see me. Let's take that guy," because he does very much seem like a Ron Francis style player.
Well, better for a GM like Ron Francis to draft guys where he sees himself than some GMs that we're not quite as good as Ron Francis.
True.
Won't say any names here.
So now we're on to Kent Johnson, and I think
good guy in the room. Yeah, they don't flood the room. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. There was a GM that told me once. Yeah, those good guys in the room, they're great but they always insist on going on the ice too.
So that's a French.
They always insist on playing the games too.
Si c'est bon dans la chambre, restez dans la chambre. If he's
stay in the room. Stay in the room. Kent Johnson, Jeffy.
Yep.
Here's a guy, and this is one of the guys I was talking about with the signing early. I I'm not 100% convinced that he wouldn't have benefited from another year at Michigan. Yeah. And then coming into this situation, I don't know. This one seems a little rough to me. And I get the kid wanted to play and he was probably pushing to get into the lineup and they want to do the right thing with him. But I don't know. I think this one might be a little rushed.
I wonder about, and listen, we'll see as early as tonight after, Columbus plays Montreal. Not that you can, project out what the kid's career is going to be like after one game, but that's kind of what we do, folks.
Owen Power is going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Apparently, yeah, he's the new Larry Robinson, according to us here, the way we're talking about him. I think I think he invented oxygen as well, guys. If I'm not mistaken,
something like that. Yeah.
So, here's what I mean, Ken Johnson, I look at, like, we know this team is, obviously, trying to replace Pierre-Luc Dubois for a while as their number one center. And, Cole Sillinger looks real good. And I just look sort of up the gut and projectile. Like, this is a rebuilding team. Make no mistake about it. I just can't help but looking up the gut for the next 10 years for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and it's Johnson and it's Sillinger. Yeah. Like, that's what I look at. Like, okay, like, Kekalina and Davidson here are putting all the building blocks in place. And you can make the argument, like, sure, Sillinger, made this team, but, should he have perhaps spent one more year? You know what I mean? But they want these guys in there now. And this is in there. Yeah, you're right. This is going to be the future of the Columbus Blue Jackets up the gut. And I think in their minds, that's what it's going to be. And now it's our job to fill in all around these guys. Listen, I think Johnson, first of all, Johnson's had a really interesting season, hasn't he? Whether it's, he's bounced around all over. Like, we just talked about Owen Power. I mean, how many different jerseys and different tournaments and teams has he worn? Was it 4? I think
Mason McTavish was 8.
McTavish
in the space of a calendar year, he played for 8 teams. Because he got in like 4 games with their AHL team in San Diego, so he had 8 teams at the end of it. But
skill adapts. I just think Ken Johnson and say, like, that's a future up the gut for Columbus.
Yeah, and you know what? In the Olympics, I thought he was really good, and I thought they didn't. I didn't think he got used as well as he could have. I thought they kind of turned to him when it was like, oh, we really need you now. So can you go out and get us a goal? Like,
go do something.
Go do something. Go do something. Help us. Like,
in case of emergency, break glass. These are emergency break glass guys.
Exactly. So, I mean, is he? What is he? Is he Ryan Johansson? I hope not. I hope he's a little bit. His ceiling's a little bit higher than that, or I think considerably higher than that. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Good.
Yep. Nope. Considerably higher than that. Certainly, he's a skilled guy. Okay. He's a high skilled player. He'll play in this league for a long time.
Okay. All right.
Nate Smith.
Minnesota State. Brought over to the Arizona Coyotes along with a contract, along with Brian Little's deal. I thought it was interesting right away. They put him with the veteran Andrew Ladd. I mean, nice, safe, smart. I think with Arizona, you're going to see a lot of players maybe get to the NHL earlier than expected. And maybe we can talk about this with Jack McBain as well. Like, Arizona's going to have a hard time signing players. And that's why Bill Armstrong's out there, making trades for players with term. And the college pitch for a lot of these players is no one's standing in front of you. Like, you don't have to beat out, like, you're not going to have to beat out a lot of players for jobs here. So I think, that's attractive to a lot of guys, certainly attractive to Nate Smith. And I just think that it's another, not that we have to, validate the hockey market of Florida, but guys from Tampa. He's another player from what us Canadians refer to as a non-traditional hockey market, which is now becoming more and more a traditional hockey market than ever before. Yeah. So I think that's always a positive sign for the game.
Yeah.
I love non-traditional hockey markets. Like, I must be the only guy from Toronto that loves non-traditional hockey markets. When Nashville was in the Stanley Cup Finals, I was watching that on TV going, how do I get myself down there now?
Totally.
Like, country music and hockey are like my 2 things. So, like, it's like something
I think as long as you're honest about who you are, you'll be a success. And the best 2 examples, Nashville is the one that you mentioned, and Vegas as well. Like we're cheesy, we're over the top, we're cringeworthy, and damn it, that's Vegas, and it's going to be great.
Exactly. Let's
just be honest about it.
Play to our identity. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's not disappointed that they didn't have more sequins on the uniforms there. Maybe some fringe coming off the sleeves. Right?
Perhaps, that would work.
Nate
I like
Smith and Jack McBain, though. I mean, those are really, really shrewd pickups, I think, for the Arizona Coyotes. I'm not sure why Jack McBain didn't want to play in Minnesota. I don't know why. I mean, it's not like he's got 15 great number one centermen ahead of him in that organization. I don't know what it was with him and Minnesota, but it just seems like him and his family didn't want to go there.
I wonder how much, the next 3 years of pain for Minnesota factor into a lot of these decisions. Like I'm with you. Like I look at, up the middle. It's not as if, he's looking at like, oh geez, Eiserman, Fedorov. Wow. How am I going to fit in here?
Jeez, I got to beat Eriksson Ek. But it's like, yeah. So,
I think I'm assuming this. I just wonder how much of a factor what the next 3 years and those buyouts of Suter and Parise and what that's done to their salary cap and what that's, how that's going to squeeze players out here and what that's going to mean for this team. I just wonder how much that factors in.
But then why would you sign with Arizona then? Because there's going to be pain there too.
There is going to be
pain. They are tanking. They're tanking.
Absolutely.
It's an absolute utter no doubt tank, and I'm convinced that they are looking at the 2023 draft and they are seeing one of Connor Bedard, Adam Fantilli, or Matt Michkov, and they can get one of those guys. If they're bad enough, they can get one of those guys, and you're off to the races.
I think the plan for them is to be good when the rink is built.
Yeah.
That's what they're trending towards. There's going to be a lot of
the year after Austin Matthews becomes an unrestricted free agent too.
Throw that in there, frighten every Maple Leafs fan.
That's going to be the clip that we put on Twitter. Is just Ken saying Austin Matthews going to. Yeah.
So I'll share something funny with you guys. So when that trade happened, when the McBain deal happened, I had one manager text me and just say, "Was that a trade or a college transfer? Didn't he already say no to ASU?" I'm like, okay, cue the jokes.
He went into the portal.
Everybody's got to have a whack at the beginning. I think
it's kind of a step sideways, really. Is.
I think it's about opportunity there, and the guy's going to get a chance. McBain's going to get a chance to play right away, and good on him. Like he had a wonderful season with BC, and this was the year that he really popped. And you mentioned guys that went to the Olympics, and he was certainly one of them. It was interesting the way that really quietly, no one around Minnesota really said much all season long about Jack McBain. I think there was just an assumption that they were just going to get it done and it was going to be simple. And it wasn't. And now he's a Coyote.
Yeah.
All right. And then the last one, going back to the good old Toronto Maple Leafs, Matthew Nyes.
Boy, do they want him. Now, Minnesota's going to be really good. Minnesota's going to be really good next year. Like Gophers, I don't know. Is it official that Logan Cooley's going back? That's right. The Logan Cooley's going to Minnesota because that team is that team's loaded up, and I know that's certainly a temptation for Nyes. But the Maple Leafs want him in the lineup. They want him in there and playing. Size-wise, he already fits. Like I had John Morosi on my radio show yesterday, and Morosi, who is plugged in to these college kids, like few others, he brought up the point that the Maple Leafs got this guy in the second round, and if you already did a redraft, he would go top 10. Sure. Like this is a complete find for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they're dying to get him in the program right now. It's going to take a pretty big pitch and sell to get Nyes in there. I think everybody thinks that he's leaning towards going back to Minnesota for one more season, but he is like power forwards now don't look like power forwards from, the 80s and 90s. Like this, we're not talking about Neely and Tocchet and these Stevens and these types of guys, but he is what we all look at and say he's probably the modern power forward right now in the game. And the Maple Leafs are and their fans should be just drooling on getting this guy in.
Yeah. And I know it's been typically with defensemen that they've taken that second year, like, the Zach Werenski's, the Quinn Hughes, the Owen Powers, all of those guys, the Cale Makars, they've all held back when the team wanted them and taken that second year. But I see no downside to him going back for one more year at all. I see no downside to it for him, other than the fact that he won't be getting an NHL paycheck. But I mean,
that's coming
when you're playing the long game. I'm not sure it's that big a deal, but it'll be interesting to see if they can do it.
Yeah. So, final question before we get out of here. Just a final one. Fix the shootout.
Oh, put a trailer.
Yeah.
And I say that to piss off Elliot Friedman, but why not? If it's supposed to replicate a breakaway, how many clean breakaways do you have where nobody else is on the ice?
I wrote that like in my weekly notes like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, like Glenn Murkowski was the one that told me that, the ex-scout for Detroit. He said, have a guy start at the other blue line and chase him. And you know what? Oh, yeah, it's gimmicky. Guess what? Newsflash, the whole thing is a gimmick.
Okay, I'll take the side. Let me play devil's advocate on this one. The only concern
on your own point, you're going to play devil's advocate.
I'm going to refute
your own worst enemy.
Refute my own point. Listen, I told you I'm conflicted about a lot of things in here.
Okay.
I'm allowed to have a lot of different feelings, and a lot of them are, not in concert, but are in, in contact with each other. Okay. The only thing that I think the NHL would worry about too is that's a moment where there is a potential for injury. It gets significant when two guys are racing as fast as they can into a goaltender and a net and boards behind it. Like, I don't think anybody wants to say, well, how did your star player get injured? Oh, in the shootout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I agree. But to me that goes by the wayside when, they let guys throw their gloves off and punch each other in the face.
Okay, but you can replicate the chaser. You can replicate that. Because as we all know, there's only one way to chase down on a breakaway.
Have a chase bunny?
No. The guy's got to hold his stick like this, and then you put another stick out and in between his hands like that he has a stick handle with between his hands the whole time.
No, that's dumb.
Replicating the hooking, the inevitable hooking call.
Wow.
Although it would be interesting to see who you designate as the chaser. Like, that's going to be a fascinating thing. How many successful chases?
Yeah. What if it goes like
Paul Byron's carear would see a huge uptick out of nowhere?
What if it goes like 18 rounds or something?
Nick Ehlers would be like fantastic. Do you want him shooting, or do you want to burn him out chasing? Yeah. I think it'd be like what it does is it winks at this idea that I still firmly believe that hockey's a game that's perfectly suited for this, because everybody has a different way that they want to massage, or in their minds fix the game of hockey. Right. Man, I would love it if there was a summer. I'm just make it for like a month. Summer league where all these different rules are experimented with, and you use pro players. Like great way to put a couple of bucks in someone's pocket in the off season. So you want like pro players, so it like you don't want the pros aren't gonna, like the NHL guys aren't gonna play this risk of injury, but just to try these different rules out, whether it's rink configuration. Like I think face-off should be up the middle of the ice, and that's it. Why are we putting face-offs in the corner? Like put like a dot in front of each net and then put it like that's it. If you want to increase scoring chances, put the face-off in front of the net. Like just that would be like that. You could call the R&D league. Yeah, you could call the R&D summer league.
Yeah, and like no icing, you can't ice the puck on a penalty. You still get called for icing, or all these other things that seem to be pie in the sky, and then you put them into practice. I think that's a great idea, Jeff.
Here's the one that I've been banging on for a while, and I was trying to get it into the GM's meetings, but I couldn't convince anyone to bring it up or put it on the agenda. The rule change that I'm dying to get in is one around shorthanded goals. And right now we seem to believe that there's a thing called the penalty kill, but there's not. There's no such thing as a penalty kill. All you do is try to endure 2 minutes of a penalty. You don't kill it.
Right.
My idea is if you score a shorthanded goal, penalty's over. Actually killed the penalty.
You actually killed the penalty.
You've done something to end that penalty. Your guy comes out of the box. Think about how Vegas would do this. You score a shorty, lights go out, spotlight on the penalty box, the door opens, the big celebration.
He triumphantly, no skate of shame. He just comes out and waves to the crowd.
I've been released. Yeah, we always think of like, how can you create momentum changes and shifts and swings?
Yeah.
Man, what's that celebration when you score a goal and you just sprung that guy?
That's interesting.
That is a real penalty kill.
Yeah.
The one that pisses me off about penalties is the fact that if you pull your goalie and then you score a goal, then the penalty is null and void. The power play, I should say, is null and void.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree with that too.
You should be able to go for two and see how much more motivated those guys are to put that puck in the net.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
By the same token, you shouldn't. The penalty shouldn't end after a power play goal either.
But also, I've seen goals called back when they've pulled the goalie and then put the puck in their own net.
Well, we all know.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Well, we all know that
the goalie.
We all know that the biggest thing that we have to do to change hockey is to make sure that there's a portal that sends people who bang on the glass straight to hell. Straight to hell. That like you just get sucked into hell as soon as you start doing that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the biggest one.
I put that on Twitter. I said my bad hockey take is that I couldn't care less if somebody bangs on the glass. You paid $5,000 for a ticket. Bang on the glass. Man.
I paid $200. I paid $250 for the NHL Center Ice package. I don't need to be sitting in my house listening to some moron go whack, 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 whack on the glass. I don't need it.
That's awesome. I'm with you on that one, Kenny. Death to glass bangers. No thanks.
Yep.
And you know where?
Straight to hell. Portal straight to hell. Phew.
You know where it's specifically bad? At the minor/youth level. The parents that bang.
That's surprising.
I know it's shocking.
Yeah.
But to me, there's nothing more embarrassing than seeing a parent bang on the glass.
I was at
if you're watching, listening right now, and you're that person banging on the glass, all three of us are saying, "Stop! You're embarrassing yourself right now." Yeah.
I was at the under 18 Central Championships at Scotiabank Pond on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, last Sunday.
Mike Johnson was there, and because his buddy from Bowling Green was coaching the young Nats, and he just kind of looks in an understated way, and he looks at me and he goes, "Can't you just feel the insanity in the rink?"
So there was. I'll close with this story. I'm going to see if I have a prop.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. I don't have a puck next to me, but I have some TV makeup, some Mac 30. So pretend this is a puck. I'll end you on this one about insanity. So Mickey Irons was a referee in the era of Bill Chadwick, the big whistle. Bill Chadwick was the official that came up with the hand signals that we all know: tripping, hooking, slashing, all that. Big whistle.
Yeah.
So Mickey, at the beginning of every game, would call the other. This is with three official system. So two linesmen called the center ice, and he'd always give the same speech. He would say this. He would hold up the puck and he would say, "Now remember, gentlemen, the minute I drop this round black thing and it hits the ice, the three of us become the only sane people in this building. Let's just remember, all it takes is me dropping this thing, and then we're the only people that have any type of sanity the minute that happens."
That is so true. That is so true.
I'm telling you, I went to a nice fight and a hockey game broke out.
That is a
I like that.
That's a good yarn. And you've had many of them for us, Jeff.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. We've taken up so much of your time, your prep time. Oh yeah, you don't prep. Anyways, but yeah.
What's your industry secret?
Yeah, sorry about that. But anyways, Jeff, can't thank you enough for everything you've done for us today. Just a fountain of knowledge and great stories, great information. And
I got you fooled, Kenny. I've had you fooled for years, Kenny Campbell.
Well, there you go. There you go. Yeah. Well, you're doing a hell of a job of it. So thanks,
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Be well, be safe, enjoy the game.
On.
Dylan, thank you very much. Kenny, thanks to you as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, boys. Be well.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
too.